So this is all about community forest gardens, something I'm really, really, really passionate about. And so first of all, what is a forest garden? Let's start at the beginning. What actually is a forest garden?
Do you want to read it, Rakesh?
Thank you very much. Yep, I certainly will. Cool.
Do you want us to check on the live stream as well?
If you can, that would be great.
Cool.
So yeah, so what is a forest garden, first of all? What do you think a forest garden is? There's no such thing as right or wrong, just what do you think? Anyone? A few of you said you're making forest gardens, or?
Layers of plants.
Uh-huh.
Layers of trees and understories, and they do layers.
Yep, so that's how you would see it. So basically what a forest garden is it's a way of growing food and other products, other consumables, shall we say, other materials, in a way that is totally in resonance with nature. So we talked about permaculture earlier in the previous session. This for me is really the most immaculate expression of permaculture, because it's about really understanding how a forest works and how forest creates richness, how forest creates this real abundance, and kind of taking that and just adjusting it to kind of meet our needs a little bit more. So maybe first of all, let's take a step back. Let's have a think about a forest. So imagine yourself in the middle of summer, one of the hottest days of summer, but imagine yourself in the middle of a deep, dark forest. It's the hottest days, maybe even the middle of the day, and it's really can't hear the audio on Facebook. Okay, we just quickly check what's going on here. Okay, I can't see any reason as to why that isn't working, but I'm not quite sure what I can do about that. Yeah, if you can just double check and let me know if it still persists, then if you can check YouTube as well, maybe if it's working there, then theoretically maybe YouTube, Facebook should catch up as well.
Cool.
So yeah, so where were we? So a forest garden, yeah, in the middle of the heart of this forest, in the middle of summer, hottest part of the day, but you're in the forest. What is the temperature like? What's it like in there compared to outside?
It'll be cool.
Why?
Shade and trees.
So you've got all this shade. So the only light that is coming through, because all of the canopy has kind of, the big trees have all tried to find a way to kind of utilize all of this possible sunlight that's available to them. And they're kind of competing to kind of find that space and make their, take their space in it. So the only light that comes through is really dappled light. So it's really nice and cool. There are a few other reasons as well. What if you were to look down at the soil? What does the soil look like? Or if you were to imagine getting yourselves down on hands and knees and looking at what's on the ground level. So the first thing you may see are some leaves and twigs and things. If you were to push those out of the way, what would you start seeing? What's under that first layer?
The black soil, the humus.
Yeah. eventually, but it kind of, it's a gradient from this kind of beautiful, you know, all these leaves and twigs and things, and then they get smaller and smaller and finer until it gets to the point where you can barely tell the difference between what was a leaf and a twig and what is soil. And is it just the fact that those leaves and twigs have broken down, or is there something else in there? Why is it like this? Is it just that they just broke down on their own?
Soil life.
It's all the life, exactly. So it's all the bacterias, it's all the fungi, it's all the insects. So the you know, the fungi and the bacteria starts breaking things down, and then other insects come and eat those bacteria, or other bacteria eat those bacteria. They eat and they poop, and other insects come and eat that, and then they eat and they poop, and then other bacteria eats the poop that the insect pooped out, and they break that down, and then other insects eat that, and and it's everything's eating and pooping and eating and pooping and eating and pooping, and just making this. What does that smell like? What does this soil smell like in the forest? It smells like the most perfect compost. In fact, I don't think you can make compost that's as perfect as this. It just smells so good that you could almost eat it. Why? What makes this smell?
There's a bacteria that creates these gases that makes a pleasant smell. I've heard that it's to attract other animals to distribute the bacteria, but I'm guessing it's just, yeah, the bacteria create that smell as they decompose.
Exactly. It's all the life. All of that life just creates this. So when you then have like a store-bought compost or or just soil, you know, so year after year after year after year of agriculture, if you take that soil, it has no smell. If you go to like the Mediterranean, where it's really, really, really hot, and you know, and you take some of that smell, some of the soil, it has no smell because it has no life in it. It just has no life. But once you've created the environment for life, then woof, and so can you imagine? This is the most perfect compost. This is and what about the temperature of it? What about the feeling? You know, is it typically what you find? It's cooler. It's also nice and moist. So it has moisture. It has nutrients. It has life. It has everything you could imagine for the most perfect food growing environment. And yet, how much food do you find growing in the middle of that forest? Not much. You might have some mushrooms. In a few clearings, you might have a few things growing there, but in the heart of that forest, there's not much growing. Why?
There's not enough light.
Not enough sunlight for the most things that we want, that we consider to be food, exactly. So, if we were to now go to the edge of the forest, where now all of a sudden we have sunlight. We have some places which get morning sun. You know, it's very rare that you get to the edge of a forest that is just a nice, clean, straight line, unless man has, you know, human beings have cultivated it that way. But mostly it's this real mixture of heights and sizes, and you know, so some areas where you get full sun, some you get morning sun, evening sun, some still in full shade, and you've got so many different places. But what do you all of a sudden start to find growing here? What takes advantage of that diversity?
Food like blueberries and stuff.
All kinds of different berries, all kinds of different wild fruits, all kinds of different herbs, all kinds of, all of a sudden, things that we could consider to be food often very many things that are food, but many people don't know that you could be eating. Because we just, as we know that in the so-called industrialized world, we've totally limited our food, our fresh fruit and veg and grains down to really such a small number of plants. And which, and then you're surprised that there's so much dis-ease when your diet is so imbalanced, because you're just taking a little bit of, you're just eating such a small, narrow amount of foodstuffs. Typically things that are even cultivated in God knows what kind of fashion, in soil that has no life, that, in polytunnels and UV light, that, so plants that have never even seen the sun in their life. And you're growing in such artificial conditions, and then you're surprised that the human body has so much imbalance, so much dis-ease. So, but in a forest garden, all of a sudden, or in this edge, now you've got all kinds of wild things growing. You've got all kinds of things that are really rich and abundant. And because they can't be greedy, what they do, there are no plants in there that have huge fruits. There are no plants in there which basically take more nutrients than the system can give it. And therefore, whatever nutrients they do have, instead of making the product huge, is they condense it. And so the food that you get from there is nutritionally really dense. And therefore, if you think about it, every time you eat something, it takes energy for you to consume that food. So if you have something big, let's imagine it has 100 calories or something, but it's taken you 80 calories to eat it and chomp through it and burn it off to then return you those 100. So you've got a net gain of 20 calories. I mean, I'm just a pure example. Whereas if it was the other way around, if you had something that was really much smaller, much more densely, maybe had 100 calories, but in a really small package, and it took you almost nothing, took you 5-10 calories to burn it off, to break it down. Because it's so dense, you're taking very little energy to break it down. Therefore, you have so much more energy left to take, to basically, you have so much more excess energy, which means that day by day, you need to eat a lot less food. You really need to eat a lot less food, because you're getting all of your nutrients in a really dense format. And so all of a sudden, if we change our diets to kind of meet this basic pattern, we can be growing our foods in a really simple way, just, with stuff that grows at the forest edge. But maybe we want to be a little bit more, maybe we actually want something a little bit, we want bigger plums, maybe. We want, slightly bigger fruit. So what we do in a forest garden is, by knowing how much nutrients it takes and what kind of nutrient cycles are required and what kind of water cycles are required to grow each food, what we do is we make sure we understand where those nutrients can come from. And so we cleverly plant the right things in the right places, so that we are generating enough nutrients so that we can have those bigger fruits that you would not see in the wild. So you've overstocked it with plants that are mining minerals, that are absorbing different minerals from the air, or they're fixing nitrogen with the help of bacteria. So they're doing certain jobs to really bring nutrients into the system, so that you can have that bigger fruit, so you can have much stronger, better yields. So this is a forest garden. It's just a really well orchestrated forest edge. So it's about studying and understanding your forest and your forest edge and how it works, and then replicating that, but then overstacking it with things that bring nutrients and create cycles, encourage animals and insects and birds and things to come and bring nutrients in, and so on and so forth, so that the plants that you want to grow can really thrive, can really grow. So that's a forest garden in a nutshell. It's just this clever orchestration of understanding nature and putting it all together. So what we want to talk about is community forest gardening. And the reason why I'm so passionate about community forest gardening is if we can start getting this form of food growing into the public eye, into public places, if we can start getting people inspired to try and grow this way, then they can start converting their back gardens, their spaces, other places into similar projects. So it's an easy way to really start spreading an idea, an ideology. Ultimately, every person needs to eat. It doesn't matter what religion, what color, caste, creed, sexual orientation, apart from a few breatharians, who, to be honest, I've not actually met many breatharians, genuine breatharians, but apart from those few theoretical breatharians, every single person needs to eat. So this is something that unites all of us, everyone in society. And so if we can create, and we all have our cultures around food. Here in this part of East London, we have it's a really multicultural environment. You have Africans, all kinds of different people from different parts of Asia, many people from different parts of Africa. You have people from the Americas, North and South, and the Caribbean, and you have many different people from various parts of Europe, and it's a real beautiful melting pot. It's a really beautiful edge, and so people will talk about, in our current, in one of the conversations we were having, we're talking about, things from like very, very specific to Nepalese cuisine, which most people had never heard of before, but we can talk about it, and now all of a sudden people are interested in that. We can be talking about like Afghan onions, which I've never heard of before, but apparently is a real speciality for them. We can talk about, most people will know what different types of yams are, cassavas, and really bring people together. If you tell a Jamaican that, yeah, I'm gonna grow some chocho, they're like, that's not possible in this country. No, we can do it. Let me show you. And many people will know about the different types of greens, the callalus and this, that, and the other. And so because you've got this really rich cultural edge of, you can really bring different people into these projects and invite them to share their cultural experiences of food, and really start connecting people and cross-skilling each other, supporting, and all of them will have their medicines. When someone is ill, especially the older ladies, whether it's an Asian lady or a West Indian lady, you can go up to them and just say, when you start talking, you can start asking them about things like, so when someone has a fever, what would you do? Oh, yeah. You see this, we take that and we mix it like this, and bang, you've got, wow, fantastic. Everyone has those stories. Oops, maybe mute Suhas. So so everyone has those stories. So let's bring them together and let's start working together. Let's start creating, we can start creating forest gardens which have a mixture of all kinds of different things. So in a forest garden, we can have trees, we can have shrubs, we can have herbaceous plants, we can have medicinal herbs, we can have root vegetables, we can have climbers, we can have obviously fruits, we can have so many different types of green leaves, we can, you know, put so much into it. And one of the ways that I design my forest gardens, which is maybe a little bit different to the kind of conventional, is I kind of create little clusters of, you know, so rather than try and design your whole entire space, is I will take certain trees and say, right, that's the center of that little plot. And then around that, I will design a guild. And so that includes different things, you know, things which will create nutrients, you know, mine nutrients, things that will attract insects, things that will repel insects, things that, you know, flowers that will come really, really early in the season, other flowers that will be there later on, creating habitat for different insects and things to live. And so all of this in one space. And I can start thinking of that around this one tree, and then I can do the same for the next. So what we could be doing is we can create different themed areas. All right, so this is for the Nepali friends. This is for the you know, other Indian friends. This is for people from, you know, this part of Africa, from West Africa, from South Africa, from you know, so they can bring their cultural experiences in and be growing things that are really passionate to them and mean something to them. But it's also about cross-skilling each other. It's about we're doing this together. So it's not like the South Africans are just growing their things and next door we do something else. It's about connecting with each other and sharing those stories, sharing those skills, and really making it alive. So the way that I kind of try and get the community forest gardens going is I'll typically try and run a course, first of all, so I can skill as many people up so that it's not just me that knows about how to make forest gardens. And then I get them to start cross-skilling other people in the network. So they then start teaching each other so that, and you know, and they'll start inviting people to, you know, okay, what is it you would like? Right. So what you've got in your space, you've got this tree. It's a persimmon tree, and and we need something that's going to fix nitrogen. So how about we use this? How about we have a wax myrtle, which will also give you like a kind of bay leaf type thing that you can cook with. It will give you wax so you can make candles. It will give you a berry that you can eat. So that's our nitrogen fixer. What about potassium? Oh, we can grow this type of comfrey there. But what other herbs? What kind of medicines would you like? And so you can kind of play this kind of give and take, you know. So those who know how to design can kind of design, but let's engage and bring other people to express what they would really like to grow in each space, so that yeah, so we can bring all these amazing plants that each culture is aware of into the system, and as I say, support each other. So I know I've got 5 minutes left, so it'd be really nice maybe to open it up to questions, and yeah, just do a question and answer session. So that's my dream of a forest garden. That's what forest gardens are for me. This is my passion, is to really share and really connect people through their you know, this mixed cultural experience of different peoples, and this is my dream. And then hopefully inspire them and give them skills that they can start doing it in their back gardens and so on and so forth. So that's where I'm coming from. Yeah, any questions or any feedback or any comments or whatever. Okay.
I see Steve's got your hand up.
Yeah, and Betty as well, and then Wim as well.
Should I go, Rakesh?
Go for it, Steve.
Rakesh, it's very inspiring, and it's very, I think you can get a lot of people into your project. How do you maintain the energy and the drive? I know, like, people teaching each other is one thing, but then still at some point I've seen a lot of projects kind of lose that. What is your secret?
So If you look at most food growing projects, it's annual vegetables that they're growing. So if you actually look at the curve of how much energy you need to put in, you need to put a lot of energy at the beginning to set up all your systems, get all the compost, get all the soil, get all this, get all that, start your seedlings, and it takes a lot of money as well. A lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy to get all the things in. And then through the year, it kind of, at different phases, you need to put more time and energy and more time and energy, and it kind of fluctuates a little bit. But you have to keep doing that throughout the year to keep it going. And then the next year, you have to start again. You look at people's energy levels. When a new project starts, everyone's like, whoa, yeah, great, really excited. Whoa, yeah, and then one thing happens, and all of a sudden the energy drops because something else even more fascinating comes along. So the energy levels of people compared to the energy levels required to keep an annual food growing plot going are very different. If you look at a forest garden, the energy you need to implement it is all at the beginning, and then little patches, as we kind of go through it. And after 4 or 5 years, it's hardly any. All you need to be doing is harvesting. So that energy curves really closely matches people's energy curves. So if you can be, so it's a case of how to engage people in that starting phase. And so some of the things that you could be doing is, first of all, what we're doing in our Valentine's Park project that Suhasini is part of is we're inviting people to constantly come and help, to say, right, what kind of things would you like in here? Do you have any cuttings? Can you bring some of these plants in from your garden? And actually, we've got an excess of these. Would you like to take some of this home to go and put in your garden? And and then later on, we'll show people about how to take cuttings. Right. Well, I'm just about to prune one of my Worcesterberry. Okay. So this is how I prune it back. And look, I've got all these cuttings now that other people can take. Do you want them? Just take them home and grow it yourself. And off you go. Look, I'll show you how to do it. Cut this here and put that in these 3 nodes and under the ground. Make sure there's nothing that can rot, bang, in the ground. And now you're sharing stuff with them. You're sharing, tips, skills, as well as products. And, you're helping them to grow things in their garden. So you need to keep finding different ways to really have people engaged and really make it feel like it is their product, their project. And it's not just someone else imposing a project on them. And that's kind of the hardest part. And I think the next subject that Betty wants to talk about, which I think are we in that time now? Is that right? Time for transition?
Yep, we're now ready to come to Betty's questions. Yep.
It's pretty much going to be looking at that. So let's concentrate. So if it's okay, Betty can answer it. Was there a quick question from Wim as well? If I can answer it in 30 seconds or not?
Not a quick question. We'll do it later.
Not a quick question. All right, type the question in and I'll have a look and we'll see where I can bring that in. So that's me done for now. Thank you very much. So again, we do have another forest garden course coming up. Again, I don't have the dates, but I think it's in May sometime. So yeah, so the idea is to cross-skill as many people in forest gardening. And so the first 2 days is just about how to design forest gardens, and then we'll have another 8 days where we actively design your forest garden. So it could be your own personal back garden, or it could be a community garden. So if anyone's interested in that, get in touch. But I'm going to hand over to Betty, who I think is going to stimulate a conversation about how do we actually get community projects off the ground.
Yes, thank you, Rakesh. Yeah, actually, I would like to start a discussion on ideas popping, because I just came up with this idea not long ago that I would like to start a community garden, not necessarily forest garden, but I think it would rather depend on the size of the plot. And I'm interested in experiences, if any of you have already tried and succeeded or not, and what is actually needed for that. Like, that would have been my question to Rakesh. How do you find all these people who would like to participate? What are the, I don't know, attractive things to make them engage, and not just at the beginning but along the project? And as all, if you don't have a piece of land, how do you get that? I already wrote to the municipality here if this idea could get some recognition and place, because there are, in Sweden, at least where I live, there are so many unused green plots which are just being cut every 2 or 3 weeks, and it's like clearly without any life, and it's just really sad to see this all goes into waste and nobody's using these areas. And I know not all those plots are okay to grow food on, but I'm sure there would be some to get, but if not, then this whole idea will just vanish into thin air, because I don't have my own green area. Or at least if I could get, it wouldn't be as big to start a community garden in it. So yeah, I'm just open for any ideas or experiences around this.
First of all, which part of Sweden are you in? Because both Elsa and Teresa are also in Sweden.
I'm in Västmanland, around, I don't know, like 50 kilometers from Stockholm to the west.
Okay, so I don't know if either of those are in that kind of direction. I think Teresa's in Stockholm. I'm not sure where Elsa is. But yeah, okay. So who is part of an active, successful community garden that can give some tips?
Yeah, I would say that we have successful community gardens here. And I think, yeah, the beginning is kind of the process. The important thing is about sharing a vision. So I think one of the processes or one of the tools that we've used a lot is the dreaming circle from Dragon Dreaming. So this idea that you started with a dream, Betty, of this kind of garden, and how can you open up that dream and create a shared dream that other people can engage with. So as Rakesh said, people don't feel like someone's imposing something on them, but you all kind of share that dream together. So that's been a really useful process, like asking a generative question, you know, what has to happen in this garden for us all to want very passionately to be involved in it, and then collecting all the kind of different ideas, because I think you've got, like, you know, like the level of feelings, you know, how do I want to feel in this project? Is it about like the connection? Is it about the inspiration? Or is it about the fact that I really want to eat cherries or nettles or whatever, you know, like looking at all those different kinds of harvests that you're going to get from the garden and kind of putting an equal importance on that. Because yeah, for some people really they come to it because they want the food, and then maybe they get something else, and maybe other people come because they want that connection, and then the food is a byproduct. I think that's a really useful way of kind of getting people on the same page and creating a shared vision to begin with.
That's really a good full idea. Thank you. But then, yeah, my other question is coming up: how to find these people? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who is dreaming about this kind of place. But I just don't know. Should I just post it on Facebook in the city's Facebook group or something and see if there are some people interested? Like I already tried to connect with people in town who would be interested in permaculture, and well, yeah, with no success.
I know one project which happened in Scotland, where this was during the time of COVID, right in the middle of COVID. It was the Narrowboat Farm. The gentleman had done permaculture, and he managed to get a whole community that didn't know each other as well and who were not into permaculture or did not have that background, just normal people who were then, I think this happened through Facebook, and they all started growing food together. They were all supplied compost together, wood, pallet wood to make growing beds and things like that, and seeds. So he managed to get some seeds sponsored from someone. So basically, he enabled regular people to grow food and also communicated through simple means how you go about doing that. So if you can manage to get those resources, then you could potentially at least start it off. So his project was very, very successful, and everyone grew food at the same time, and they would share pictures of their success. It was very, very cool. And now they started with the next season as well. So, and then now and then he would have people come like experts and give advice and talk about certain things. It was very simple, but very effective. And this was during COVID times.
Yeah, I like the idea. Sorry, I can't speak. I like this idea. I was also thinking about once I get the place and I start doing it alone, it would be encouraging other people who maybe wouldn't believe at the beginning or before it would happen, or maybe just become curious to come and take a look and then be involved and participate and so on. So yeah, maybe there are more ways to do it, and maybe there is no need for necessarily a group of people to get it started.
Hi, Betty.
Hi.
One of the things that that we worked in the valley, so in the south of the United States, where it's like very, very dry, well, very, very hot, and there's just like a lot of people are very disconnected from nature, because that's like where big agricultural companies just like violently grow food for the rest of the United States. And Marta, my sister, and I just started to see how quickly people just migrating to the United States from south of the United States can have so many barriers to nature. So basically all this to say that we just, we wanted this idea too, because both Marta and I grew up in the mountains, and we wanted to bring people and with nature and connect with nature and grow our own food. And I think one of the things that the way that it started was I worked in an 8-to-5 office, no windows, sad. Just bringing a lot of plants in my office was just enough for people to be like, "Whoa, that's so cool." How, you know, can I? And I'm all about like indoor plants because they're currency for me. Like they just root, and then you just give somebody a plant, and it's not food, but it's just like a little invitation of like, at least you have a plant in your house. Those are really easy, and I just have bottles everywhere growing with just rooting with currency. That's my currency. And the other thing that we started doing is just composting. So it can be food. Yeah, but thank you, Rakesh. Yeah, it could be food as well. I think like just for people to just know that it's super simple. You just have to put it in the water and not really work about it much. And then the compost started inviting more people to participate and throw the compost. They thought it was really cool. And I would actually take the compost home, which was like a lot of work. And then the clinic where I worked at had a tiny little space. And thankfully I had my sister that has the dream with me as well. And I do think that, yeah, if you're on your own, it takes a lot of energy, but it just really helped to have somebody else, because when you're like running out of energy, somebody else is kind of like pulling you. And we started off with, I actually think that like a forest garden is easier than a community garden, because we really just collected stuff. Like we were like, oh, there's logs, let's just bring logs. And for a while, the logs were just like the frame of it, you know. For a while we just had logs, and then we wrote a letter to have like donated topsoil or compost, and they just dumped it there. So now we had soil, and then just like we had spirulina, is that what it's called, Marta? The yellow flowers that are basically, you can just cut them and stick them in the ground. And sorry,
Purslane.
Thank you. And then one time I just had a breakfast papaya for breakfast, and I had tons of papaya. So like we just buried the whole tiny little space with papayas. And I'm a therapist. Well, I was a therapist at the point. So like clients coming out with like so much pain would come out and just breathe, and I'll catch them and be like, do you notice what just happened? You just took a deep breath. And they're like, oh, it just smells like my childhood. It smells. And it was just like, those people were the ones that we wanted to work with, because I think a lot of like, they just wanted something. They just kind of didn't know what it was. And if it was like just being in with the flowers, or just being like connecting with, and it was so interesting because we would, like Rakesh shared, there was elders that would come and be like, oh, well, we use this for this. And then something that's just randomly growing, and we're like, oh, awesome. So then we create, like, we painted a little rock and we labeled it. And then but yeah, like I think people came and went, and right now, like the garden is still there. All my co-workers in this clinic just didn't, some of them were like allergic to outdoors, psychologically allergic to outdoors, and they just would not go outdoors. And very few of them have any knowledge of the garden, but they still, it's like a daily thing. They, you know, they still go out there and they can have bananas, they can have cilantro if they forgot cilantro for their sandwiches. They can have like little bits of here and there. They might not have the whole full extent of the whole medicinal property of a plant, but they did remember specific things that just keeps the garden going. That's kind of, that was my experience. And I would say it's pretty successful, because even if people might not be going there as trafficked as it was when Martha and I were there and doing all this events, we would do like scavenger hunts for the kids. They loved it.
Okay,
I would do
amazing.
all,
We're kind of running out of time. Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, we should have finished about 5 minutes ago.
Thank you. That was very inspirational.
But yeah, so the key thing with, if I can summarize just really quickly, the difference between a community forest garden and a conventional food growing garden is, in conventional food growing garden, you need to keep working every single year. You need to have lots of people with lots of money and lots of resources to continuously keep putting that energy and effort and energy and effort and energy and effort in. And whereas whereas a forest garden is, you put a lot of energy in at the beginning, and then you need less and less energy, less and less people, but you get more and more yield from it. So it's up to you. It's your choice which route you want to take. But yeah, there's, you know, but the advantage of a conventional food growing plot is that people get conventional foods. But the downside is you need a lot of compost, you need a lot of resources, you need a lot of seeds, and a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of patience to make it happen. So yeah, but it's stuff that people are much more readily, yeah, they know those foods much better than they would know things that you might get from the forest garden. So that's the main difference. So I'm going to hand over to Sophie. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to hand over to Sophie to start wrapping up.
Okay, lovely. So yeah.